is Matt Feldman, Untitled Chapter. Today is Thursday, October 13th, and we are very happy to welcome Laurie Neighbors, Amy Merritt Campbell, Min Ma, and Mindelyn Anderson. The floor is yours.
All right, good morning, everybody. Well, it's morning still here in Nashville. I was telling my group yesterday, I do so much facilitation that it's just hard for me to not step into the space. So I will help kind of be cruise director today while my colleagues and myself share a bit about our experience. So we're going to start off by just doing some introductions of ourselves and a bit of our origin stories about our businesses so that you can just get an idea for the kinds of work that our organizations do and how we got here. So we're going to start off with Min.
There. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Min Ma. I know I've met some of you or worked with some of you even. I run a small consulting firm called MXM Research Group. I will pop the link in the chat when I'm done juggling all the things I'm juggling. I started independent consulting in 2014 and decided to transition to a team model just last year, actually. So I had my first hire in 2021. And at the moment, I am around 5 FTE employees and I have a few contractors. And I'm based in Boston.
Awesome. All right, so let's go to Laurie.
Hi, everybody. It's so great to see so many familiar faces. I work on the newsletter for ICTIG, and I know so many of you through email, but haven't got to spend any time with you. So this is a lot of fun. I wanted to tell you a little bit about my origin story, and we didn't cover this, but we're kind of ranked like baby to OG with our stories, and you'll get to see who the OGs are in a minute. But I'm a little bit newer to having my own firm. I was successfully consulting on my own for about a decade when the pandemic hit. And I had really been in a great groove of low overhead and just spending all the money I made on myself, which was really cool for a long time. But then as the pandemic was, just as it was starting to hit, I had really been itching to grow. And part of that was because I realized that firms get bigger contracts than individuals do. But the other piece of that also was that I felt like in having a firm, I could do kind of more good works than I could as an individual person. And I was really interested in that. So I took advantage of an emergency disaster recovery loan that was offered to me and used it to kind of rebrand, build up my website, hire my first employee, bring in a dedicated team of contractors who were willing to work on projects and could commit to doing that over the next few years. And we took off. And I know it's kind of counterintuitive that I decided to build a business during the pandemic when none of my old clients were paying me because they couldn't figure out how to do it from home, but it seemed to work out for me really well. And we were able to build up and really attract some good contracts right off the bat. For us, it's less about offering a single skill or a single approach and more about a worldview. We as a group, as a team, believe in transformational change and ending systemic oppression. So that is kind of our umbrella, and we do that using equity-focused research and evaluation, organizational development, project design and sustainability, strategic planning, and design and facilitation of meetings, trainings, and convenings. A big piece of our focus also is our own lived expertise. I am a queer, working class, disabled Shawnee woman. Each of the folks that I've brought on has lived experience and directly with systemic oppression. And so we're able to bring that to our skills and our talents and the projects that we do. And I think that's been something that clients have really appreciated as well and has helped us build out the business. So that's my overview. And with that, I will pass it to Amy.
Thanks, Laurie. I think it's terrifying that I am considered one of the OGs because that's just terrifying. But that's how it shakes out in our group. So I'm just gonna step into that space and own it. So hi everybody, my name is Amy Merritt Campbell. I'm one of the co-founders of Elevate Consulting. So you may have seen, as Matt referenced, my business partner Jessica Gibbons Benton, or my other business partner Hannah Woltgen, who is in the hospital with a brand new baby this morning. So we're sending her good vibes. He was born last night at like 11:30. So we're excited over to add some new little loves to the Elevate team. A bit about our origin story. I started doing some independent consulting in around 2014, kind of in different spaces. So I was doing some evaluation work, some kind of program design strategy work, and then some grant writing, grant management work as well. But really, the more I connected with some of my colleagues here in Nashville, I really started to see and understand the need for real intentional capacity building and support around evaluation in Nashville. And thought, well, if this is a thing that, the community needs, this is, I at least have a starting point for that. And I went to Centerstone Research Institute here in town, which you may be familiar with, to kind of brush up on skills and really get embedded in the evaluation world. Connected with Jessica there. She and I had been colleagues in grad school, connected with Hannah as well. And started to do some work kind of on the side, to picking up contracts here and there. So in that way, kind of early on, we were kind of operating as independent consultants ourselves, even though there were three of us. We were still kind of working more independently, but with the vision to build something bigger. So that we started in 2016 doing the work together as Elevate, under the Elevate banner. And over time, we took on more and more contracts and were able to transition to making this our full-time job we fully made that transition in 2019. So we started in 2016, but fully made the transition to a real kind of, business structure in 2019. Since then, we have been able to grow both in terms of our staff size, as well as the types of work that we take on. So we say that for us, kind of our vision statement, or our kind of approach to the work, is that we believe that human connection, intentional learning, and action create change and change communities. And so that's kind of, if it lands in that space for us, that's really where we lean heavily into in terms of our services. So this looks like kind of full spectrum evaluation services, like I'm sure many of you provide, as well as strategy work, program design. And then we do a lot of consulting in the collaborative or coalition or systems building, systems change space. So we do a lot of work supporting backbone organizations who are leading these kinds of initiatives here locally, and in a couple of other cities as well. So we're a staff of 8 now, with 3 or 4 contractors. So we've been able to grow and have experienced much of the growing pains that we're going to be talking about today. And then, hope to continue to grow in the future intentionally and sustainably to better support our community. So that's Elevate's origin story. I will pass it over to Mindelyn.
So I don't know in what world I've become the OG, but I think we flipped a coin or rolled some dice and somehow ended up last. So hi, I'm Mindelyn Anderson, founder and principal of Mirror Group LLC. And we are an evaluation, learning, and strategy consulting firm based in Washington, D.C., with team and clients all over the nation. Formally started Mirror Group June 5th, 2017. So we just turned 5 years old. Yay! That means we are in kindergarten. We're learning how to write our names and share and do all that fun stuff. And so I'm very pleased to be here with you all to just share more about what the journey has been like to go from a solo practitioner consultant while I was in grad school in 2007 to formally starting Mirror Group as I transitioned out of the academy. I used to be a professor in 2017, so kind of that 10-year gap, and then bringing us to the current day in 2022, where we have 13 full-time employees. We have a couple of job offers out this week, so I need all of y'all to cross your fingers and say good thoughts and all those things that those colleagues accept. And we have a number of subcontractors that we also partner with. We call them our preferred partners. And at least one is on the call today. Hey, Tasha, who we met at the subcontractor fair in the ICTIG. And so we specialize in culturally responsive and equitable evaluation and consulting. And all that we do, we strive to make data and information meaningful, accessible, and actionable. And we do that with learning organizations and the communities that we love. And so I'm excited to chat about the joys and the pains of going from a solo person on the side to a solo person plus paid interns full-time to somehow a small business owner with payroll and benefits and all that fun stuff that you have to do to set a strong foundation for the future. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Mindelyn. I'm going to circle back to Min. I saw that you felt like you needed to share some more about your origin story. So I'm going to give you the space to do that.
Yeah, sorry. This is how I usually show up though, so no surprise. Yeah, I can say a few more things. I started consulting back in 2014 because I was in a position where I just gave out all the fun contracts to consultants, and I was a program officer managing some international development projects. And so I started in 2014 working mostly abroad. I convinced my partner to move to Bangkok because that's where I wanted to do the work in migration, and had a really awesome time for 2 years there establishing a practice, only to move back to Boston and start all over. So I feel like I've kind of started this thing a few times. Started in Bangkok and then came back to Boston, started here, worked independently for several years. And really, I think this is maybe leading into one of my joys of growing a team. The reason why I decided I wanted to do this was because I really missed having that sort of ongoing thought partnership and like an actual team to collaborate with, and to not have to think about, okay, which subcontractor should I try to reach out to for this next project, and then how do I develop that pipeline. So it's been truly joyful, despite some of the other growing pains that colleagues have alluded to. And we work, so now most of our work is based in the greater Boston area, though we do still have some national and international projects just from legacies of past work, but really are working to set deep roots in the communities that we live in, and build off of those relationships. And we work on a number of topic areas, including public health, community health, education, and now moving into the climate space a little bit too.
Thanks, Min. Thanks for that extended release version of your bio. So what we decided, we were having conversations about how to structure our panel today, and what we decided is that we wanted to give you all in the room an opportunity to tell us what it is that you're interested in, and how we could kind of share our experience in a way to support, what it is that might be helpful for you all. So we created a little poll based on some of the topics that have come up for us in conversation in our mastermind over the past several months. And we'd love for you to vote on which of these topics feel most important and most relevant for us to discuss with you today. We'll leave this poll open for a minute or so, and we'll just go down the line and we'll get as many of them as we can. I will say that we want to leave about 10 minutes at the end for just open Q&A. So if there's a topic that you want to discuss that you don't see here, don't fret. We will leave space for some kind of open-ended questions towards the end. So I see lots of input popping in here. Love to see it. I don't know if you guys can see it over here on your end. We'll give everybody about 10 more seconds to vote.
They are not able to see it, I don't think, but all the co-hosts can.
Okay, cool. Haha, we have the power. No, I'm joking. All right, take just a few more seconds. No, I'm supposed to be writing these down. All right, so what I'm seeing here is in terms of the most responses that we have, it looks like business development, unsurprisingly, falls to the top of the list. And then it looks like we have a tie for our second place, which is our services and offerings, and how we kind of came to those decisions, as well as building a team and managing a staff. So we'll start with those. And if we have time, we'll jump down to some of the other topics as well. So let's start with talking about business development. So we can start with whoever from our group feels most prepared to jump in, start talking about some of your challenges or some of your approaches to business development, or what has risen to the surface for you in terms of experiences or practices that feel relevant to share in the space.
Sure, I'll kick us off. Business development. So the whole language around business is newer to me, because I think of, what's our joy at the intersection of data and equity, and how are we in relationship with clients and community? And so business development for us at Mirror Group is really being in relationship with folks, and marketing and communications and those sorts of things are a huge area of growth for me. All of the work that we have actually comes through referrals and recommendations. There's someone who currently works with us, has previously worked with us, or has been in contact with someone who's previously or currently works with us. It says, hey, you should go check out Mirror Group. And so we're so grateful to have those opportunities to get to meet folks and see how we can support and partner with values and missions aligned organizations. When it comes to business development, so there's kind of that, I guess, word of mouth or referral that happens. And we do have an intake process. And so we have a brief intake form on our website that folks are able to fill out that provides some information for our team to consider, to get to know more about who this potential partner or client is, what is it that they're seeking, and how we might best serve or fit that. From there, I'll have a 25-minute chat with them. A meet and greet is what I call it, and get to have the opportunity to meet one another, learn more about the interest and what the potential work could be. Because of our ways of working, which is collaborative, participatory, and iterative, we actually have an internal team process. It's called a go, no go, where we come together as a team to consider, is this an opportunity we should pursue, right? How might we do that? And what would that look like? If it ends up in the go zone, we reach out and say, yeah, the team looks like, we'd be really excited to pursue this opportunity. And then we go through with the proposal and bidding and onto kicking off the work. If for whatever reason it doesn't work out for us, as we review it as a team, maybe the timing is not right, maybe the particular type of expertise and combination of skill sets that we believe would make it a really awesome opportunity we don't quite have or we can't access in our network, then instead we come back and say, unfortunately at this time it won't work for these reasons. Could be timing, financial resources team. We oftentimes refer out. And so we recommend others that they may want to follow up with that can do the work in a way that they're looking for. And we tell them to keep in touch. And the great news about it is that folks really do keep in touch. They come back around. And so if, if the timeline wasn't quite right, they'll come back and say, giving you more advance notice. So can we work together and have this opportunity? If the budget or resources weren't quite right, they'll come back and say, we now have increased staff capacity, or we've done these initial steps internally as a team, or we were able to garner additional resources to do the work in the ways that you all talked about. Can we work together now? And so, that's a bit about our business development process. Thank you.
I can jump in on this one also. So I wish our systems we're not the OG at Cities and People, and I wish our systems, and I aspire for our systems to be as fine-tuned as Mindelyn's. But I will say, in terms of just getting clients, getting that pipeline of clients, we have very similar experience in that it's almost all about word of mouth. It's almost all about repeat business. But one thing that's really surprising to me is there's a lot of LinkedIn in there as well. So I am not a big social media person, but what I've realized is that for firms like ours, posting on LinkedIn is kind of synonymous with marketing in a way. If we want a project that's in, say, the educational equity space, and what my team and I do is we often like huddle and say, okay, we've been working on this thing, this and this. What else do we want to work in? What other space do we want to be in? And I will tell them, I'll go out and see if I can get us a contract in that space. And so, I think for us, educational equity is one of those spaces. I am like Mindelyn, I'm a former professor as well. I find that when I start posting a lot about my students, my experiences with students, experiences with educational equity, then the program officers that I know that are working in that space or the nonprofits that I know begin interacting with me more around that. And it very often has led to, for us, some amazing work and some amazing opportunities. One thing you'll notice about us, though, is that when we're full, you won't see me on LinkedIn because if I'm posting on LinkedIn, somebody's going to approach me, and we're not very good at juggling our pipeline because we are so small, and I'll have to pass that opportunity on to someone else. So what you can tell when you see me on there a lot, it's because I'm cultivating and looking for new stuff. And when you don't see me, it's because we're pretty full up as well. So hot tip.
Thanks for sharing, Laurie. We had a question in the chat box about how we get those initial clients. So who are we connecting with that's referring clients to us, or where are we going for new business? And I'm happy to take a little stab at this, and then maybe Min or someone else you can weigh in there as well. For Elevate, we have the luxury of being one of the only kind of firms who are putting our names out there in terms of evaluation services in Nashville. Certainly there are other practitioners, I'm not saying that at all, but we kind of, in terms of a coordinated effort, we're one of the only firms in Nashville. Does not mean come to Nashville. Just kidding. I'm joking. You can come to Nashville. We'll collaborate. Just kidding. Anyway, but so when we started back in 2016, our strategy was kind of like Laurie said, totally word of mouth. I mean, we talked to every single person we knew in this space, and really the question was, what are your challenges related to evaluation? What are your needs related to evaluation? What resources do you have? What resources do you wish you had? What would you pay for evaluation services? What are your challenges in paying for evaluation services? And so a lot of that kind of, networking or those conversations led to some of our initial jobs and to some of our clients that have stayed with us throughout our 6-year growth trajectory. So some of the folks that we met early in those days, we still work with and have become some of our biggest clients. The other thing I'll say that we did that I think was really helpful for us was that we connected with the Center for Nonprofit Management, which is our local nonprofit membership organization, and they provide training and resources as well as consulting services for local nonprofits. And we built that relationship with them and became one of their expert consultants, so that when a nonprofit came to them saying, hey, we need some support in this space, we were kind of on their roster, and we were able to do trainings and workshops as well that kind of got our name into the space and kind of established some credibility for us among nonprofit practitioners in Nashville. So I would say those two things were kind of the initial steps that we took that were probably most effective. And then over time, it's just been cultivating those relationships. And again, a lot of our current book of business is repeat clients. We don't do a lot of RFPs submissions unless we're, individually invited to submit those. We've done a couple, but not many. So that's a bit about how we do it. Min, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, we do. We haven't rolled out RFPs because they have been worthwhile for us, and I find it to be a fun way to kind of think beyond and be a little more proactive than just reacting to who comes knocking on our doors. And so that aspect of it has been nice for us, and it hasn't been a waste of time. yet, though I know some people feel like it is. So putting on my Greater Boston Evaluation Network hat, where I'm currently the president, I'll say that volunteering and getting involved. And so like your local affiliates of AEA are looking for volunteers, most likely. And when I moved back to Boston, I realized I had no idea who was working in this space, who was doing what types of organizations I would want to work with. And so I started by participating in GBEN, Greater Boston Evaluation Network events, and then thought, well, if I'm going to be here all the time, I might as well volunteer and help put on the events. And through that have just, it's been a really great opportunity to build relationships and to be working, to being a part of building the evaluation ecosystem I want to see in my region, while also, you know, being top of mind for people who are looking for evaluators or have, you know, opportunities come into their inboxes, and they can forward that on if they know that I'm also, you know, an independent consultant looking for projects to work on. And so that that has been a part of my path for, I think, since 2017, 2018. And I've continued to put time into that because it's been really great for both building relationships, building the evaluation ecosystem, and then also bringing opportunities to our door as well. Without feeling like I'm doing business development or sales. It's felt very natural that way.
Awesome. We have another question from Nicole. How do you keep in contact with clients once projects have ended? I can just say that we're not very good at that. My answer is a short one. We are constantly having conversations about how do we keep that conversation open. I will say that what I think we do really well is looking ahead to the next potential contract while we're in a current relationship with a client. So constantly having conversations with them about how's this working for you? What other needs are coming up that we may be able to help you solve? And just being really intentional about keeping that kind of dialogue open with our clients. And so far that's worked for us in terms of continuing to build those repeat connections. I do think I do a lot of just like in the community work through my work as a facilitator in this collective impact space. So I see a lot of our clients because we're mostly here in Nashville. I see them in these spaces and work really hard to make those connections. And, you know, how in the South we say, how's your mama and them? So a lot of that goes on in those kinds of facilitation spaces, and my business partners roll their eyes at me when I start yucking it up with clients. But you know, it's proven to, you know, be really effective in building those relationships. Mindelyn?
Yeah, I echo what you say. So in the South, you say, how's your mom and them? And in some of the communities that we're in, we say, how are the children, or how are your people, and how are things going? And that's the similar way that we stay in touch with clients to make sure that it's not just transactional, right? And so with our place-based work, we're actually in the communities where clients and partners are. And so we see them there. And with our work that's national, we check back in. We're in the same networks, whether that's in philanthropy with foundations and nonprofits or a certain subject matter expertise. I'm one of those people that loves to share resources. And so if I see something, whether it's an article, a blog, a podcast, or something that reminds me of that client or of those folks, I'll drop them an email and say, this made me think about you. You know, how's the work going? Or if I see that they're doing something in particular, I'll say, oh, I read about you, or I ran into so-and-so who mentioned this, you know, that's going on. So I'm not the best with social media, just like Laurie, we're twinsies. And I'm also not the best with phone, which makes me not the best person to keep in touch with folks, but I try to practice when someone comes to mind or something reminds me of that person, just reaching out and dropping an email or a point of contact.
And I will say, and I told Nicole this before, so she's probably going to laugh. My real origin story is the first day I ever started consulting. I just took my whole context downloaded into a spreadsheet. And with every person who I thought might have some kind of lead for me, wrote like coffee, email, lunch, and just strategically mapped out really every person that I had any kind of relationship with that could help me with my consulting business. And I do that now. I block out an hour or sometimes 2 a week, at least one, which is about just emailing people and checking in and being like, hey, how's it going? And I have our clients book, and I also have a wannabe. Like, these are people I want to be my clients. Like, not yet, but if I just keep like asking them how their kids are and remembering their kids' names, it could happen. And so I spend a little bit of time doing that. And like, I mean, I'm from Texas, so we're naturally all up in everybody's grill anyway. It comes very easily for me. And I can see how it might be different if that's kind of culturally different for you. But I think that's been the friendliness and the outgoingness has been really increased the power of those relationships, and those relationships have led to contracts for sure.
Awesome. I think I want to transition us to our next topic. Many more things we can say about business development and getting clients. So feel free to reach out. I think any of us feel great about you reaching out to any of us individually if you have further questions. But we had a tie for our second topic, and one was about services and offerings, and the other one was about building a team and managing staff. And that one has been a really juicy one for us in our conversation. So I think let's start with building a team and managing staff. I do think it's proven to be one of the more challenging aspects of growing our businesses. It's certainly the ones that we talk about most frequently in our mastermind group. And so I think we have a lot of stuff to share. And again, feel free to pop those questions in the chat box, and we'll put them up to the group. So I can start us off here on this one. We, like I said earlier, I started with myself and my 2 business partners, which was kind of an unorthodox way to start anyway. And we spent so much time in those early days just really getting on the same page about values and vision and how we work and our different work styles. And that really proved to be one of the best things that we could have spent our time on in those early days, because we presented to the community as a united front. We, if you talk to one of us, you got the same messaging as if you talk to another. And we really did, we had conflict, of course, but, we could work really collaboratively within our different approaches and styles and skill sets. And then as we started to grow, one of the challenges for us was starting to transition what had been complete shared ownership and leadership to more of a hierarchical structure, right? So one where you have business owners and paid employees who are not who don't have an ownership interest. And so we hired one person back in 2019. And the lesson learned there is going to just one person who, when you have a team of 3, was really challenging because it was a power dynamic that was really difficult to navigate, both for us and for our staff person. So we had lots of conversations about how do we create the same kind of collaborative space that we had developed amongst the 3 of us with our staff. And those are the conversations that we're really still having now. Is we talk a lot about how as a business owner, you hold all the pieces, right? You understand you're balancing your capacity with business development and what's in your pipeline, with what are your budget needs, with what is your skill set, and how do you manage your capacity to meet these things. And if you're working with subcontractors or other staff, and you're constantly juggling all these pieces, and how do you invite folks into that conversation in a way that gives folks ownership and a space where they feel like their voices are heard and their perspectives are and their skills are made a part of that process, and also just juggle all those pieces. And I'll say that has been one of the biggest challenges for us. The other pieces, of course, we tend to hire really quickly. We're like, oh my gosh, we have more work than we know what to do with. Let's hire 6 people. And that means that we're doing a lot of just-in-time policy making. We're doing a lot of oh crap, we need an equipment policy, and we need to go get better health insurance, and now they want a 401k. And so it's a lot of that, like very much like, oh, okay, now we need a new thing. And a lot of trying to be responsive to that. And that can feel challenging, and it can feel reactive sometimes. And so just trying to think about how to be as intentional about that as possible. I can keep talking, but I'm going to pass it to another one of my friends.
I can build off that. All of those things, yes, where I'm constantly feeling like I have to, I'm just chasing the next thing that I have to put into place, whether it's a policy or an IT plan, or all the things that are, that even going under operations, and at the same time, business development, doing the work, making sure clients are happy. And so, like, for me, when I think about building a team and managing staff and establishing ways of working together, that would feel so much more simple if I didn't have that long list of roles, and if my job description wasn't so long in itself. But since it's one of many things, I think that that makes it tricky. And then reflecting on just, being independent and working with subcontractors versus doing this with a team. I think with subcontractors, it was a lot easier to say, here's your scope of work, and here's how we're going to collaborate, and you do your work and I do my work. But it's so much more than that when you're working with a team, and there's a need to be clearer about roles and responsibilities and how that might change over time. And then still thinking about, well, in this COVID era, how work itself is changing, and that there aren't great models for, running a firm or a professional service practice that, is gives people the space to, have their personal lives and opportunity to be really generative. And there's just so many principles that I envision bringing to the firm that I don't have great models for. And so I feel like I'm building a lot of things at once and learning how to do it as I fly.
I will go because I know Mindelyn probably has the richest history on this topic. So I'll get my little bit in, and then you guys just settle in, because I'm sure there's going to be some juicy stuff coming up. I actually did. The questions in the chat are really good. I think I mentioned before, I just wanted bigger projects to have a bigger reach. So I think that's when we knew it was time to change. And then I did work with dedicated contractors. I didn't work with them the way that Mint is describing, though. We had a kind of a team-based approach, because one of the things that I desire to do is I would someday, I already, I was the person who wrote my whole employee manual before I even had an employee. Like, here's what profit sharing is going to look like. Here's what, 401k I'm going to choose. It was like I modeled the whole thing, and then I went out and found the people to plug into that model. And I think that's probably how I knew I wanted to have a firm, because I was so excited about writing my manual and about doing that building and stuff. And so it's been really good. But one of the things that came out of that is I realized I have really high standards for being an employer. I want to pay people well. I want to give them good 401ks. I want to give them good benefits. I don't want them to have to like scrounge around for equipment. I want them to be able to have all the perks of a good job, even though we are a startup and we're really lean. And so that has meant for me growing slower, right? But it's also meant to me that with each person that comes in, we talk a lot about like, hey, are you potentially interested in doing this as a cooperative? Are you interested in doing this? Would you like to be a partner down the line? And so I'm open to all different kinds of ways of growing the business. I'm not necessarily bought into just being like the CEO or president. So we've been flexible with that over time in terms of how can really good people that I know are passionate about what I'm passionate about and really have great skills and can really deliver, how can they come into this model and it be fulfilling for them and attractive for them, and they can pay their rent and send their kids to college and little stuff like that. and at the same time, us be running this lean startup. So juggling that has been a challenge, but it really is, I think for us, it has been a much slower growth. And that's kind of how I've ended up being one of the slower growers in our mastermind as well, too.
Thanks, Lori. I don't know how I follow you. So let's make sure for the remainder of these 15 minutes that I don't go after Lori. I don't know what kind of juicy tidbit she thought I was going to share, but there's been many joys and pains in it, just to speak transparently about it. I am a planner, but more than that, I'm a big dreamer and big vision kind of person. And I also lead very much with my heart. And so not having a formal business background, no, I didn't have like a defined growth plan and this size and these types of folks, and this is what we'll do. I hired myself full-time in the business September 1st of 2019. So just a handful of months before COVID, snatched us all back behind these screens and these boxes. And when I started out, I had 2 paid interns, and it was all right, we're going to do this work. I had banked enough in savings from doing smaller projects on the side, weekends, evenings, summers, to accrue a year's worth of salary. And so I thought, worst case scenario, if I just twiddle my thumbs for a year, we'll be okay. And I can always go back and get a job. Well, that's not what happened. I'm not a thumb twiddler. And so I had the paid interns. And as the pandemic hit, the first thing that came to mind was, oh my gosh, I don't want to lay anyone off or reduce anyone's hours, because this is the worst time for that. And I went into hyperdrive as a recovering type A personality, and we continued to grow. And because I didn't have set systems and processes and growth plan in place, we outsized ourselves, just to be frank about it. I was swamped. We had a ton of 1099 subcontractors. I was the only effective project manager, plus the 20 other hats that we were wearing, and it was too much. And we burnt folks out, myself included. And it was like, no, this is not the way to go. And so what we decided at that time was to shift from 1099s and part-time employees to actually start hiring other full-time employees and continue with 1099s. But I jumped into that, similar spirit as Lori, is like, yeah, living wages and folks are going to need benefits and all these things. And we're tiny. Those things are outsized costs, but we know we have to provide them. And so we try our best to do that as a small business. But we can't compete with larger established organizations that get those things, a dime on the dollar compared to what we have to pay for it at a unit cost. And still, in the beginning, we had a health reimbursement account because health insurance was just too much. We couldn't do it in the beginning, but we wanted to provide something. We also had life insurance, so short-term, long-term, disability, accidental death. We had a 401k retirement account because we care about everyone's old gray-haired self, and we have a match. And we had a student loan debt repayment account, and we matched that as well because we care about everyone's young, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed self that got all the education and degrees to come work with us and to add this value. And so that's what we started with, and just kind of grew from there, like PTO and other things of that nature. So that's a little bit about the benefits and the people and the care for folks in that. But the big part is really just how you relate person to person in an organization where all of a sudden like HR needs or talent management needs, and you don't have that background and you don't have that dedicated resource. And so I'm not going to sit here and lie to y'all. It's been rough. It's been really rough in that space. And the best that I can do is share, my heart, my intentions, even when that's not the impact, and our commitment to do better. And so those are some of the things that we're building out, just as far as making sure that our culture is felt and is warm in the organization, and that we really can support colleagues on a number of different levels. So I will share that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mindelyn. So we had another couple of questions in the chat. One about if we are hiring staff with benefits but not requiring full-time positions. I'll say at Elevate, everyone's considered full-time staff, but we definitely, our business model is set up a little differently. We learned really quickly that you can't actually bill 40 hours a week to a client and or to a project without working 60 hours a week. And so our business model is based on a 25-hour work week, even though we consider that to be a full-time position. So I just wanted to share that as kind of a random way of thinking about it. And I'm sure my colleagues have their versions of that as well. But we have 10 minutes left. And so I wanted to move us we got through 2 topics, you guys. We did it. We
See, I
scratched the surface.
told you, Amy. Let's do that rapid fire now. Can we do that like 60
Yeah.
seconds or less, and to get it like a buzzer going? Like let's go.
Need something to spice it up. So yeah, we got through 2 topics. I would love to use the rest of the time for you just to come off mute, ask your question. And I do think, like Mindelyn's saying, a little bit of a rapid fire would be great. We'll take as many questions as we can get here in the next 9 minutes. So feel free to come off mute and ask your question.
I'll kick it off. Amy, how do you do 3 partners, and why did you do 3 partners? Come on, what's up with that?
The why question, I don't know. I knew I needed people around me who were smarter than I was, because I masquerade as an evaluator. I am a facilitator at heart, and that's the space I love. So bringing Hannah and Jessica in was as much about their wonderful skill sets as it was anything else. And I think, like I said, we focused really heavily on trust building and learning about each other, and really committing to, getting on the same page about how we were going to work together and how we were going to, show up for each other. And that's hard work, and it continues to be hard work. But we have done this long enough now to know that that's our special sauce, or our secret sauce, or whatever you want to call it. And so it's really critical to our success as a firm, and we work really hard at maintaining those relationships. And it's not easy. They want to murder me half the time, I'm pretty sure, but it's fine. Other questions in the room? Don't be shy.
Mindelyn and Laurie, is the icy TIG worth it for being a leader?
Oh, it absolutely is. I signed up to join the board, or put my hat in the ring a couple of years ago, because of the energy of Lisa Katz-Marsick, who's our current chair. I was just like, I want to work with you. So put my hat in the ring and let's see what happens. And we were program co-chairs together. And I stay around because of awesome folks like Nina Sabari, who's our outgoing chair, Laurie, who's our newsletter, chair, and my fellow mastermind member. And no, I did not orchestrate that, but I was pleased to see it. And so this is just the best resource in town, I say. So along with that alphabet soup of government resources and other spaces that we dropped in the chat and have talked about, this is my singular space where these concentric circles of being an entrepreneur, business owner, and being an evaluator and learning and strategy person come together. And so I really value the TIG in this space, and hope that you all feel supported here as well.
I agree, and certainly a million hearts to Mindelyn for everything I've learned from her, both in the TIG and in emails and in the mastermind and in every way that we interact. And the rest of the TIG team, it's been fantastic and good for the business also, because I've learned a lot. I've made connections. It's been great. And I also have been involved. I'm on the committee right now that is overseeing the board evaluation for AEA. And I think that's been a really interesting volunteer activity as well. So I encourage everyone, the TIG is great. And I also encourage you to think about volunteer activities with AEA overall, because there's lots of learning to be done, and other folks to meet as well.
Other questions in the room? Don't be shy. Got 6 minutes.
Oh, hi. I had a question about, bear with me. We are a really small firm, and we're trying to think about what is, in this sea of technology. We love to use data collection technology, and we are trying to decide what is the best at this moment for us in terms of our size we're really small, but also in terms of our clients, and we're looking into, tools that are more like participatory in nature, things like that. So I was wondering if you could speak a little to that in terms of, especially of analyzing qualitative data, what it is that you see, really interesting, avenues or things that you've worked yourself as a small business. Thank you.
I'll say welcome to the club, Melissa. We're all trying to figure that out, right? We're too small to have these enterprise robust solutions. And at the same time, we don't have the capacity to be able to manually do it, right? And to turn it around the timelines that we like. And so I'll share a couple of quick tips that we do. We utilize client software and systems as they have it. So with larger clients, we say, oh, we want to use your system. How do we get access to that? Also with larger clients that have budget for software equipment or other things that's not direct labor, we write that into the proposal and say, we know you're going to want fancy whistle X. And so we're writing that into the budget so that we can give that to you. Otherwise, you're getting a Google form, right? And so those kinds of things, we just have the conversation to really understand what they need and how we can interface with it. And then lastly, get to know our tech friends. I am not the techie. I'm the latest adopter to technology, but there are amazing things happening with open source software, folks that can program an MVP, which is a minimum viable product, and just do amazing things with machine learning, ML, natural language processing, NLP, and AI, artificial intelligence. And so I believe that that is the way for us to go. So you got to cozy up to those folks in tech. Hope that's useful.
This has me thinking, so Jeevan we're looking at our membership database and saying, oh, we're not sure if this is really doing it for us. And so in the process that we're going to launch a process to look at other options, and which involves kind of sitting down on those sales calls with tech vendors. And we have somebody on our team who's really good, has a lot of professional experience doing that, leading the process. And so for Jeevan, we decided we wanted to open that up to other people who might kind of want to be a fly on the wall through the process to learn a bit and hopefully apply to their own businesses or to work with their clients on doing that. And so that's just one way we're supporting one another to learn and answer questions like that together as we grow. And that is something that we're hoping to open up to other affiliates as well to join us on the ride.